The Tale of Starlight and Steel. By Fire Princess 25. Prologue. Stars burned in the velvet dark, cold and ancient. Somewhere between those constellations, a battered human soldier named Jason Hale drifted toward a future he could neither predict nor control. His days as a commander on Earth were over. The battles he had fought had left scars deep enough to rival the craters of the moons he had once seen from orbit. He thought his war was done. But nothing in this universe lasts forever. On the fringe of known space, fate placed him in the path of Zara Colran, a warrior princess of a distant world where steel sang with honor and the stars themselves were bound by duty. Neither of them knew that their meeting would weave together two legacies, one of starlight, the other of steel, into a single story that would span battles, betrayals, and the quiet moments between them. Chapter 1. The Soldier and the Starlight. Jason had retired into obscurity on a neutral trade world, living simply and keeping his head low. His once clean-shaven face now bore a rugged beard, streaked with the faintest hints of silver at the edges, a quiet badge of years in the field. His broad shoulders and deliberate movements marked him as a man who had seen war, but no longer sought it. That peace was shattered the day Zara walked into the dim-lit tavern. She was taller than most humans, with sleek, dark cobalt hair bound at the nape, and eyes that gleamed like molten silver. Her stance spoke of someone who had been trained from childhood to fight, balanced, alert, and yet oddly graceful. Jason noticed the way every mercenary in the room shifted subtly when she entered. They knew danger when they saw it. "Jason Hale?" she asked, her voice cool but laced with something urgent.
"That depends," he replied, taking a slow sip of his drink. "Who's asking?"
"I am Zara Colran of the House of Colran. My people are at war, and I need someone who understands strategy and survival." He leaned back, measuring her with a soldier's eye.
"War's a young person's game. I'm done."
She met his gaze without flinching. "No one is truly done, Commander. Not when lives are at stake." And with that, his quiet exile began to crumble. Chapter 2. Lessons in Steel and Starlight. They traveled together in a small interstellar freighter. At first, the air between them was stiff, two warriors from different worlds, testing both patience and limits. Jason began teaching her tactics drawn from Earth's long history of warfare, flanking maneuvers from medieval battlefields, guerrilla techniques from the jungles of old, and precision strikes from modern special forces. Zara countered with the martial disciplines of her people, blade forms that danced like wind over water, and shield work that turned defense into lethal opportunity. During one early sparring session, Zara's strikes came sharp and relentless. "Move like a predator that doesn't waste energy," and she said, his movements efficient and economical.
"Spot twice," he answered.
His earthborn precision fusing with her flowing unpredictability. The trust between them grew in every parry and counter. When they weren't training, Jason introduced her to human things, the bitter joy of coffee.
"Zara loves coffee," he had said with a rare grin.
The ancient distractions of old Earth television, and the stubborn magic of a half-broken coffee maker that somehow always worked. She, in turn, introduced him to her world's art, dances that told the histories of her ancestors, and the formal, deliberate rituals of courtship. She showed him the foods of her homeworld, spiced and rich, each dish a story in itself. In quiet moments, their conversation slipped into personal territory. Jason began to shave his beard, at first just for convenience. But when Zara saw his now clean jawline, she found herself staring longer than she intended. Without the beard, he looked younger, sharper, and, she admitted to herself, dangerously handsome. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Past. Their journey took them to a backworld on the outer rim, a shadowport where ships came to disappear and deals were struck far from the gaze of any lawful authority. They needed a discreet safe passage to Zara's homeworld, and this was the only place to find it. The port reeked of engine oil and old secrets. In the main square, Jason's sharp eyes tracked every movement, noting sentry positions, weapon bulges under coats, and the way people leaned away from certain alleys. It was here that they met him. Lord Dirk Valoran, tall, broad-shouldered, with the polished armor of a noble and the smile of a man who thought himself irresistible. His eyes, cold and calculating, softened only when they landed on Zara.
"Zara," he said, his voice dripping with charm. "You've been missed. Your place is beside me, where you belong."
"My place is not at your side," she said evenly.
Dirk's smile never wavered. "Your family agreed to our union. My house and yours, joined in strength. We could have been the greatest power our world has ever seen."
Jason stepped subtly between them, his posture calm but ready. Zara's voice hardened. "My family was trapped into agreeing. They tried to resist you, but your manipulations left them cornered. I will not be part of that. Dirk's gaze flicked to Jason with open contempt.
And this, soldier, is what you choose instead. He can't give you what I can.
Jason didn't rise to the bait.
What you can't give her, he said quietly, is choice.
For a moment, the tension felt like the stillness before a blade's descent. Then Dirk smiled thinly.
We'll see how long your defiance lasts.
They secured their passage, but both knew this was not the last they'd see of him. Chapter 4, Baptism of Fire. Their first true battle together came sooner than either expected. The smuggler's route they had purchased was ambushed in the narrow lanes of a debris field. Dirk's agents, no doubt, Jason could see it in the precision of the attack. The enemy ships pressed hard, forcing their freighter into a dead zone where maneuvering was limited. Jason immediately took command.
Cut engines for 3 seconds, he ordered.
That will leave us a sitting target, Zara protested.
Exactly, he said. Then they'll commit to a kill run, and we'll make them regret it.
She hesitated, then nodded. Trust, fragile, but growing. The plan worked. As the enemy swept in, Zara diverted all power to forward shields while Jason timed a full thruster burst, slamming them past the attackers and giving them an opening to escape. When they boarded an enemy corvette later to disable its tracking array, the true blending of their styles began. Jason moved like a shadow, precise, economical strikes, each motion calculated to disable and control. Zara flowed like water, unpredictable angles, spinning cuts, and feints that drew opponents into Jason's line of attack. It was no longer his style or hers. It was something new, born of necessity and trust. Chapter 5, War Council. They reached an Allied outpost hidden deep in an asteroid cluster. It was here that Zara began integrating Jason's battlefield thinking into her people's strategies. The council chamber was lined with star maps and tactical holos. Zara stood before her commanders, explaining their next move. We will not meet Dirk's fleet head-on, she said, pacing like a commander in full command of her board. We will use his pride against him. Strike at his supply lines, force him to chase us, then lead him into the Korath Expanse.
Jason added, the Expanse is a navigational nightmare. We've mapped 3 safe routes. He doesn't know them. Once he's inside, we collapse the passages behind him.
Some of the older generals looked skeptical. And if he sees through this? One asked. Jason gave a faint smile. Quote.
Jason gave a faint smile. Then we adapt. War is a conversation, not a script.
Zara glanced at him, remembering their first sparring session, his adaptability, her unpredictability. This was their war now, and the plan bore both their signatures. Chapter 6, The Siege at Murden's Gate. The siege began at dawn cycle. Dirk's forces descended on the fortress world of Murden's Gate, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Jason and Zara stood side by side on the battlements as the enemy advanced. Archers to the high wall, Zara commanded. Cavalry, wait for my signal. Jason's voice cut through the din.
Infantry stagger formation. Make them think we're weaker on the left flank.
When the enemy committed to the bait, Zara led the cavalry in a sweeping arc, crushing their flank and forcing their center into disarray. Jason coordinated the fallback of the left flank into kill zones pre-marked with hidden mines. By the battle's midpoint, the rhythm between them was undeniable, her instinct for flow and timing matching his strategic foresight like 2 blades forged to fit together. As night cycle fell, the fortress still stood, and Dirk's forces withdrew in frustration. Zara looked at Jason, the faintest smile on her lips. We fight well together. He nodded.
We do.
And for the first time, neither of them doubted it. Chapter 7, Shadows of the Past. They left Murden's Gate behind, their victory tempered by the knowledge that Dirk would not relent. On a backwater world known only to smugglers and fugitives, Jason and Zara stopped to resupply and purchase updated star charts. The spaceport smelled of ozone, fried grain, and the kind of desperation that came from living outside the law. Jason kept a hand near his sidearm.
Place like this, you keep your back to the wall. Zara's eyes scanned the crowd. Place like this, you keep your allies close.
It was there, among the rusting bulk haulers and shadowed alleys, that they met him. Lord Dirk, tall, broad-shouldered, his armor lacquered in black and crimson. His eyes were cold, predatory, and his smile was a thing of calculation rather than warmth. He bowed slightly to Zara.
My betrothed, you've run far, but never far enough to escape your rightful place at my side.
Jason's stance stiffened, but he said nothing. His eyes measured Dirk the way a swordsman measures the distance to his opponent's heart. Zara's voice was like tempered steel. I was never yours, Dirk. My family was forced into that arrangement under duress, and I have no intention of honoring it. Dirk's smile didn't falter.
Think of what we could be together. Our houses united, our enemies crushed. Return with me, and your people will prosper. Jason finally spoke, voice low but edge. She's already prospering without you. The tension was a drawn bowstring, but Dirk only inclined his head, a predator choosing not to strike, yet. We will speak again.
Chapter 8, Lessons Between Battles. The days that followed were quieter but not without purpose. Jason spent hours each day studying alien weapon systems with Zara, plasma blades that required reading the opponent's emotional cues, staff weapons that demanded deceptive footwork. He also began training with her in the art of her people's dance fights, rituals that blended combat and celebration. She laughed the first time he stumbled over a complex foot pattern. You're thinking too much, she teased.
I'm making sure I don't lose a leg, he replied with a grin.
In turn, Jason taught her Earth-based military tactics, tight formations, psychological feints, and what he called controlled chaos, creating a situation so unpredictable the enemy couldn't adapt in time. Their styles bled into each other, until Zara's strikes began carrying the precision of Jason's drills, and Jason's movements took on the fluid unpredictability of her dances. They shared meals of blended heritage, spiced grains from her world alongside roasted meats from his. And one night, beneath the stars, she told him of her people's courting rituals, offerings of handcrafted tokens, the sharing of a single breath before a kiss. Jason listened, storing every detail. Chapter 9, The Wedding of Starlight and Steel. The royal hall of Zara's homeworld gleamed with crystal light, the vaulted ceiling painted with the constellations under which her ancestors had ruled. Jason stood at the far end of the aisle, his attire a careful blend of worlds, ceremonial armor trimmed in the deep blues and silvers of her house, with earth tones woven into the cloak at his shoulders. As the music began, Zara paused at the entrance. For a heartbeat, the hall faded around her, replaced by memory. She was bringing Jason home for the first time. Her family, wary but curious, stood in the great hall. They had known Dirk, his polished manners and veiled cruelty, and many assumed Jason would be the same, a soldier, distant and cold. Instead, they saw a man who listened before speaking, who greeted servants and royalty with the same steady respect, who met their questions not with rehearsed charm but with sincerity. In time, the wariness melted. Her brothers sparred with him in the training yards. Her mother tested his resolve with a dozen subtle challenges, and he met each with quiet determination. By the week's end, they had not merely accepted him, they welcomed him as family, not as the warrior who had fought beside Zara, but as the man who loved her as fiercely as they did. The memory dissolved, and she stood again in the present. Her heart swelled with resolve, love, and certainty as she stepped forward. When they met at the altar, the vows were brief but unshakable. And when the hall erupted in cheers, Jason leaned close and whispered,
I hope you're ready. My family's tradition is dancing until the feet give out.
Zara smirked. Then I'll make sure you're the first to fall. The laughter that followed was contagious, the first sound of a new chapter in their lives. And as they walked together down the aisle, hands clasped, it flowed seamlessly into the next chapter of their journey, one that would soon include a family of their own. Chapter 10, Years of Light. The years after their wedding passed in a rhythm neither Jason nor Zara had imagined. The galaxy, once full of dangers, now felt smaller, not because the threats had vanished, but because they faced them together. Their first child, Kaelin, arrived on a quiet spring night on Zara's homeworld. He inherited Jason's sharp jawline and Zara's dark, star-bright eyes. Even as a toddler, he showed a fierce independence, preferring to test his limits rather than be told where they lay. 2 years later came Arya, her hair a silken cascade of Zara's royal silver, her smile mischievous. She learned languages with alarming speed, often slipping between 3 in the same conversation. And last was Ryan, the youngest by 5 years, quiet, observant, with a mind that took things apart only to build them again in better form. He had Jason's patience, Zara's precision, and the stubbornness of both. Chapter 11, The Hearth of Starlight and Steel. Their home became a fusion of cultures. Jason's earth artifacts, old medals, a weathered leather-bound journal, and a steel practice sword, sat alongside Zara's family heirlooms, jeweled circlets, ceremonial staffs, and tapestries of their ancestors' victories. Meals were an adventure in themselves, roasted root vegetables and spiced grains, slow-cooked meats seasoned with herbs from 2 worlds, and the occasional experimental dish that left everyone laughing. Jason trained the children in his own way. Kaylin learned formation tactics in the training yard, Arya practiced stealth and observation on mock missions around the estate, and Ryan absorbed engineering principles like second nature. Zara added her own lessons, the dance fights of her people, the discipline of reading one's opponent, and the diplomacy of speaking without yielding ground. One warm evening, as the sun dipped behind the ridges, the family gathered in the courtyard. Kaylin boasted he could take both his parents in a sparring match.
Jason grinned. You're forgetting, I've fought armies, boy.